Public CEO Report is a podcast that provides insights about the public sector and public policy for the benefit of decision makers and leaders powering our communities. I'm your host, Ryder Todd Smith, and today we're joined by Matt Gates, president of Erickson-Hall Construction Company. Matt, welcome to the Public CEO Report.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and opportunity to talk to you.
Well, always great to talk to a fellow executive leader, and especially with an organization that's near and dear to my heart and one I've had the opportunity to do some work with over the years. But tell me a little bit about Erickson-Hall. What the heck what do you guys do, and who do you do it for?
This is the coolest thing about Erickson-Hall. When people ask what I do, we build schools, and you just roll that out there, and the folks are, wow, that's pretty impressive. And it's not just classroom buildings, but it's football stadiums, it's kitchens that not only serve the school district but also communities, and just general population impact buildings. So we've been building schools for 26 years, and we're a Southern California builder. So basically from Santa Monica, Apple Valley to the Mexican border. That's our footprint. We've done over 250 schools, and we're upwards of $3.5 billion of work in place in the history of our company.
Wow, that's a lot of construction. And is it 100% schools? Because I know certainly in the past you've done some work like fire stations and things like that.
So about 85% of our volume is in the K-14 school market. And the other 15%, we do essential service buildings, and for municipalities, fire divisions. Orange County Fire Authority is one of our big clients. We're currently doing quite a bit of work in the San Diego County area with North County Fire, as well as City of Chula Vista.
Okay. All right. So quite a big footprint. And I love getting construction guys and gals on conversations, just because I find the built environment around us to be fascinating, and the challenges and opportunities that creates, and the obviously long-term impact. I'd love to figure out the number of how many kids have actually experienced, spending their day going to a school that was built by Erickson-Hall. But I'm sure if it's not hundreds of thousands, it could be well over 1 million at this point, would be my guess.
That's a great metric to start figuring out. Wow. I've never thought of it that way. I enjoy when we go to the ribbon cutting, seeing the kids excited over who's going into the new facility versus which one of their friends is going to stay in the existing non-modernized one. And they always are talking a little bit of trash back and forth, and I enjoy that.
It's nice when your work product becomes a source of trash talking, yes. Especially with the 8-year-olds who could talk some serious trash. How did you end up, before we get into some more about Erickson-Hall and some questions I have about construction stuff, which again, I love talking to construction folks about these things, but how did you find yourself in the construction industry and becoming CEO of Erickson-Hall?
Well, I was searching for my way in between high school graduation and going to college. And I ended up on a construction site as a laborer, and worked a few years there, and decided, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I went back to college. So I graduated high school, and then 10 years to the month, I graduated college, and I was hired as a project engineer in 1992, and I've been working in construction ever since. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy seeing things put in place on a daily basis. To your point, construction is a challenging industry, a lot of things happening, and I like fixing things and meeting those challenges and thinking outside the box. And this industry really gives you those opportunities. So as I've gone through my career, I've been able to bring some of those experiences to our clients, to other subcontractors or other general contractors, and help them reach their goals. And as I've gone through that, I've been able to kind of elevate through the different positions: project manager, project director, project executive, up into senior leadership roles in construction companies.
Mm. And here you now sit at Erickson-Hall as president. I'm curious, how big is the organization? How many people do you actually have that work at Erickson-Hall?
We have currently we have just under 250 employees. Actually, I should say employee owners. We are a 100% employee-owned company. Mike Hall and Dave Erickson, the founders, as part of their transition and succession planning, sold the company to the employees in 2019. We completed the second half of the purchase in November of 2022, and we're currently 100% employee owned. Mike and Dave still are active in the company as part of succession and executive coaching for the employee owners to make sure that we're going to have a solid leadership group moving into the future with the company.
That's quite a great story. And I'm just curious, when you say, I mean, it's employee stock ownership plan, I assume an ESOP, how has that changed the mentality of staff, or has it?
Well, it really has. There's definitely an ownership mentality that has been created over the years. The first year or two, there was a lot of education with our employee owners, and then we started showing out the stock statements to every employee. Every employee receives stock at the end of every year. They're mandated to work 1,000 hours and be employed at the last day of the fiscal year, and they're allocated stock for that year. So they get their stock statements. They're beginning to see those balances rise. They're seeing what they can do, and we've done some education, minimizing safety issues, not having insurance claims, capturing new work, capturing new clients, and performing that work. They all see the day-to-day things they can do to bring value to the company, and they're really excited. And they're even pulling into, well, what can I do to save the company money on the back end? Turning off the lights, making sure our sites are secure so we're not getting any vandalism, things like that. So they really have kind of embraced that ownership. I'm going to protect my job, make sure it's profitable and successful and safe, and they reap the benefits of it every year.
Yeah, I love that alignment in the organization to keep everybody focused on pulling in the right direction, being efficient, and then helping you be more effective. Frankly, I mean, part of that efficiency is just to be effective in the market, to deliver value for our customers, right, and do great work for them. I'm from your vantage point. I mean, there's a lot to be said about this, but labor market is very, very challenging, dynamic in the construction trade. Engineering is changing constantly. New standards are being laid out in California, and then generally we know cost of construction is expensive and getting more expensive theoretically, at least from what I hear, particularly under tariff regimes and things like that. But even before that, it was getting expensive. So what are you seeing in general from the labor market, engineering side, and cost of construction side that is making you either lay in bed and stare at the ceiling at night, or otherwise contemplate strategies for the market you're in?
Labor market's been a challenge for the last 5 years. It is crazy. We've been seeing retirements out of our industry continuing to grow. That gray tsunami, that is happening. That's a real thing. 10, 15 years ago, our schools were focusing on pushing the kids to college and not so much career education. The school districts and the education industry has realized there are kids that are not going to go to college. So you're seeing a lot of career tech being put into schools now. We're happy to build those projects. We enjoy those projects. We'll mentor the instructors and help them out with resources after the buildings are done. So we've been behind the 8 ball in replenishing those retirees, but we are gaining traction. The unions have been very strong with their apprentice programs also, and they've ramped up their efforts also to recruit the younger generation into the industry. So we're going to be chasing for quite a while, but we are seeing some things happening. We are seeing people change industries. You know, they may have been a worker, homeowner association, a facility director with a hotel group, things like that. They're shifting into construction, and you know, being able to take the time to train them up and do it the way we do it in our industry, that helps bridge the gap. We've also been very aggressive in internships. We have a paid internship program. We reach out to over 200 colleges on the West Coast, and we're typically recruiting. This year, we're going to have 22 interns across our company. The last 3 years, we have been able to secure 12 full-time employees from that internship program, and we're continuing to build that. So we are being aggressive in finding folks. With interest rates the way they are, we're finding some trade craft people that are coming out of the housing industry and out of commercial. That's been really affected by the interest rates, and moving them into the education market and the essential service market. And that's been helpful to, we've continued to grow every year in terms of not only our revenue, but also in our manpower.
So that's interesting in that, I mean, I think what I hear you saying is because of slowdowns in construction with residential and the commercial side, all those skills are still helpful. I mean, if you have those construction skills, they're still obviously helpful to you in doing school construction. So we'll call it public sector construction, and the public sector construction still continues. So you're actually just seeing sector shifts, same labor skills, but sector shifts in terms of where it's being directed.
Correct. Essential services, you're going to see a big boom in essential buildings for municipalities. During COVID year, quite a few of the cities and counties passed sales tax increases, dealing with safety, dealing with access, and helping their cities get safer, get more accessible to their population. They've been gathering those funds, and now you're beginning to see construction projects roll out because of that. So that's also been several years ago. Our essential service market was really our smallest vertical, and the last year, 18 months, you've seen we've captured. I think we've tripled our backlog in essential services as these projects are moving to market.
I guess just putting a cap on this discussion around cost of construction. I seem to recall it wasn't that long ago when we were seeing 10 to 15% annual increases in cost of construction, meaning somebody went out to market to get a quote on a big, say, water aquatics facility, and they couldn't pull the trigger on it. They came back a year later to rebid it, and the bid was up 15% plus. Or is that still the trend in terms of like our cost of construction still accelerating well ahead of the inflation rate, or has that tempered a bit?
You're getting some spikes across the board in different materials. Some of it is tariff comments and uncertainty. Some of it is legislative requirements that the states passed in part of green building. Concrete is going to become more expensive moving forward because of carbon capture and how they make and manufacture the cement. It's also a high energy requirement to manufacture that. So you're getting legislative as well as material costs in the manufacturing of the products. And then you're also getting tariffs and cost uncertainty in materials that we are importing. So that is, you're getting spikes here and there, and then you're also getting decreases in pricing. Several years ago, the largest copper mine in the world. They had 3 unions, and all 3 of them struck at the same time, and copper went through the roof, and that affected electrical as well as plumbing materials. That settled down, but then now we've got legislative issues with green building, driving up cement, driving up how far away we can capture lumber and ship it down to the job sites. So there's those kind of challenges. We're also this year we're moving into a new code change. Every 2 years, there are actually every 4 years there's a code change. Every 2 years there's a review of the codes, building codes, and they utilize different information to things that change, things add cost to how you're going to anchor something. Is there a seismic requirement that's now different than what was before? And those will also drive the costs up. So what we're seeing this year is a lot of our architects and clients are pushing to get their projects in and permitted before the end of the year prior to the code change. And that's one way to mitigate some kind of unnecessary costs. If you've got it in the plans, move it forward and get it permitted and then put it out to bid. And that is a very strong way to kind of manage cost uncertainty as you're moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, that did seem to be the theme, and I think you're just reaffirming it, which is if you're concerned about cost increases and shocked by a price you have today for something, delay is not necessarily going to help alleviate cost. It's only actually probably going to make it worse. And if it's not because of cost of materials changing, then it's because of additional regulatory burdens that are going to probably drive those costs anyways. I presume rarely does it ever happen that there's a revision to the building code that actually results in a reduction in the cost of construction.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured. And don't get me wrong, like I'm sure, there are lots of reasons why we want to have good code for construction, certainly, right? That's yielded some good value in terms of seismic safety and fire resistance and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm confident that it's not like building codes don't have merit. It's just there is also always cost to these things.
Yeah, early on, the Title 24 codes and that sort of thing.
Title 24 codes apply to what? Just to be clear.
Energy efficiency, okay, and interior air quality, things like that for the buildings. They were driving initial costs, but over the course of the life of the building, it ends up saving money. Mm-hmm. So you're paying for it on the front end of the building side, but your life cycle costs ended up going down. And that California has been pretty strong in pushing those energy efficiencies and indoor air quality and space quality of the occupants. And that ends up helping the building owner long term.
Right. So how, maybe a little more specific or observations if you can, but how have you seen the tariffs and kind of elevated immigration enforcement effective kind of in early January? How has that affected your business or maybe construction industry in general?
Really, okay. So tariffs, what you want to do is identify what the target is, where the region the tariff's going to be applied. The Canadian tariffs, the issue has always been the lumber. Mm-hmm. They are a large supplier for the U.S. in terms of lumber. So that's going to affect housing. It's going to affect education building, particularly the K-12. Those are typically wood-framed structures. Mm-hmm. California is moving more towards a structural steel type model. And again, it's expanding the life cycle of the building by doing that. But other regions have always been wood frame structures, and they continue to be. If you can get in and get your order placed prior to that issuance or the effective date of those things, you can become more cost certain. driving that to the subcontractors, get your purchase orders in, lock your prices in, and so you're pushing down the line to be forward looking and grabbing those materials before those additional costs go into effect. That's how you're going to deal with tariffs. You're going to see lumber. Steel's been fairly erratic, and we're either doing it, we're doing this amount of tariffs, and then it reduces down during the course of the negotiations. Again, you want to get your price in as early as you can, get it locked in. The suppliers will honor those prices. European tariffs, those impact our major electrical components, switch gears, transformers, substations, those kind of things. And the last few years, the big push there has actually been just in manufacturing time. What used to take, 16 to 24 weeks is taking 12 to 15 months. And how do you put that into your schedule? And every day, I keep telling our guys, general conditions just to manage a job for a month, that's $80,000, guys. So the sooner you get done, that you're going to be saving costs and helping the project hit the budget. So when you're seeing those types of long lead times, you need to be thinking outside the box how you're ordering those. So an early order, again, you're being cost certain, and it's going to hit the date that you need it to, as opposed to sitting there waiting for a month or two for it to show up. So those are some things you can do on the tariff side and the manufacturing side. In terms of immigration, we have not seen a lot in our industry. The K-14 market's highly regulated, labor compliance requirements. Our contractors, they're registered with Department of Industrial Relations. They have to upload their payroll reports to the state. There's a lot of information that they have to send to the state, to where our workers are all documented. Maybe the housing or the commercial, there may be a little less because there's not so much of a labor compliance requirement in those industries. Whereas in the education and the essential services and the municipality public works, there's requirements for wage. There's wage scales you have to meet, and there's reporting requirements to show that you are meeting those wage requirements.
So part of what I hear you saying is just because of the regulatory nature of the public construction environment, it actually is a little bit inoculated against labor market jolts from immigration enforcement and undocumented labor activities, which might be more prevalent in the private sector, commercial construction, and some of the residential construction trades.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we may see, and we haven't seen it yet, is if there's family members that end up getting caught up in the immigration, much like COVID, if you had two parents and they were working A/B shifts at their respective jobs, someone's got to stay home and watch the kids on Tuesday and Thursday. So you were seeing a breakdown of labor during the work week as they were taking turns trying to get as much work as they could with their respective jobs, but you were seeing a reduction of work during that week. Mm-hmm. And that's where you start looking at those kind of ancillary impacts. We haven't seen them yet, but that may end up happening if there's family members that get caught up in this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting insight. I hadn't really thought about that particular angle of concern. You had, and thanks for the broad kind of commentary about navigating some of those costs. I mean, it seems to me it shifts a lot more towards effective construction management and project management to really foresee those delays on delivery of electrical components out of Europe, or just planning ahead to make sure you have your lumber costs locked in on time. Maybe one quick follow-up question: What changed in Europe? Why did suddenly Germany take 5 times longer to produce whatever, their transformer or their electrical components that it was taking before? Are they having labor issues, or are they having issues sourcing raw materials? What's going on there?
They're having labor issues. You saw it during COVID, and it's never quite caught back up. There's folks that left the industry that never came back in the manufacturing side there. And then again, you start rolling into the same gray tsunami that we're seeing in our industry. They've got it too. Again, it's catching up. We're seeing some things. There's been added manufacturers that have started to help bridge. They've upped their quality to where they're now specified in certain industries, to where now instead of going to the one supplier of transformers, you can now go to this one or this one. And that's giving us some flexibility in terms of managing. And to your point, you're right. It's looking ahead, proper construction management, project management on mitigating those deliveries. And that gives us some opportunities to mitigate the schedule issues.
I would imagine the ability of Erickson-Hall to have insights on all of that and do that planning from your decades of experience is one of the competitive advantages you guys offer in the market, and the value add you bring to your customers you work with.
We've got a great rapport with our subcontractor base, to where if they are getting information from their suppliers, they're forwarding it to us. We also have the ability to gather information from our insurance companies, our bonding companies, on what they're seeing, not only locally, but nationwide. And we can utilize that information. We pass it not only to the rest of our team, but we share it with our clients and our key design partners, so they can start making some decisions on what they're specifying and understanding the impacts of, if they're going with this decision, this may happen to the schedule or to cost. Those are big things. So we like sharing that information. Our goal is to make sure that we deliver on the customer, the client's vision. And part of that vision is, what are they paying and when are they getting it? So we have early conversations, and we give them opportunities to make decisions to positively impact their project.
Yeah. The ability to share knowledge across and tap into your network of subs, I kind of refer to as speed of knowledge, and having accelerated speed of knowledge is hugely advantageous for anybody that's proximate to the projects you're in, not to mention your ability to deliver. So that's super interesting. Earlier in the conversation, you had made reference to the fact that there was a shift maybe at the community college level of moving from timber frame construction and educational facilities to steel frame. Did I hear that right? And is that being driven by building code changes, or is that just a shift in economics trying to respond to tariff or construction skills, or just a desire to build a building that's going to last 100 years instead of 50? What's behind that?
So our clients are seeing costs of raw materials go up. They're trying to amortize it across the board. There are some codes that have changed, but realistically, a lot of the schools that we're working on are 20, 30, 40 years old or older, and they're looking for a building that's going to last 100 years. So coupled with the cost of raw materials, paying extra for, and I shouldn't say extra, paying market value for steel is a more cost-effective way to go. It's typically a little faster to build those buildings and get other trades in, so your construction schedule is going to help a little bit. You can also go vertical a lot easier with steel construction. Typically, when you see wood, you're only looking at two stories. When you go to steel, shoot, sky's the limit. It all depends on how much room you have on a school site. Mm-hmm. We've got one campus that we're beginning to start work on. It's their smallest footprint for a middle school in their district. So we're putting in a 3-story, 90,000 square foot building, because they're required by Department of Education to have a playground area. So you've got 90,000 square feet in the air. You've got a 2-story gymnasium, locker rooms are underneath with the gym on top, and you still are able to provide that outdoor play area. And so we're seeing a lot of steel that way. Same with the higher education buildings. They're going to go vertical. They want a department under one roof. So to get that, you're going to go vertical, you're going to go bigger, and those will be more steel or concrete masonry type structures and less wood.
First of all, super interesting, particularly when you just think about space utilization, and especially given the cost of land in California, and then even more so in our more urban areas that are landlocked. What other trends are you seeing out there that are driving either innovations in engineering or space or choice of materials that is just kind of a on trend, so to speak? Maybe not necessarily from a visual standpoint, although that's certainly maybe part of it, and maybe it's hip with the architects out there and they want to use it, or maybe it's just regulatory driven. But what do you see out there in the market?
Schools without fail have parking issues since the start of time. There's never enough room for parents to drop their kids off and still have teachers being able to park. So what we're seeing in a lot of the districts you're seeing parking structures. They're a lot smaller than what you'd see at a mall or a stadium, but they're effectively using the space they have and providing for safe drop-off zones for their students and parents. So you're seeing a lot of that across the board. I like to say construction really is never cutting edge. Our materials are always there for years and years and decades and decades. You'll see some performance improvements, and you're going to see some of that in construction in the concrete area, utilizing some, again, part of carbon capture and things like that. There's opportunities to where you're going to get to a more green type of building product. That's really where your innovation is in terms of the materials. In execution, you're seeing technology go through the roof. We're modeling our buildings now months in advance before we pour our foundation, so we can see where things fit, where they don't fit. If for some reason you utilize all your details and a beam doesn't reach, you know it before you've ever built the beam. And you can make that change well before you've got 40 iron workers up in the air trying to bolt steel together. That is a huge improvement to where we were 15, 20 years ago. And that's a cost savings. They're able to pre-manufacture. Our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors are huge on the modeling aspect because they'll do it to a detail that they can actually build in the shop, bring it out, and drop it right into that space, and it fits. So again, if you're not working on site, you're more effective. You've got a controlled workspace. And again, that's driving a cost effectiveness to the client. You've scanned the buildings while it's being built. You hand that tape to your client, and they can look 10 years later and say, oh, there's a conduit right here in this wall that I can tap into and put a new outlet or new data box or what have you. And that is really a great product for the facilities person of that building. If they need to make some modifications, if they need to move walls because of curriculum changes, they can utilize that information and really do a good job in a cost-effective way of making those changes.
What can public agencies do to be better partners with you about kind of helping bring these projects to success? Like what's their role? I mean, obviously they're rarely in the construction management business, I would think, although maybe larger districts have in-house construction management to provide some oversight. But what are some things that they should be considering as how they can be a best partner with a general contractor?
lot of the larger districts and actually our municipality partners, they're utilizing what's called a delivery method that's called progressive design build. And they're basically hiring the builder who hires the designer and will work with that agency to reach the vision. That puts everybody at the table making decisions for the benefit of that project. That is huge. School districts utilize it to a certain extent, but they also have opportunities to bring the builder in early, even if they want to maintain the control of the design by hiring the architect and the design team separate. But they can bring the builder in early and utilize that builder's knowledge while they're designing. And there's a lot of cost effectiveness in decision making when you're early there. So you're seeing a lot of early awards of builders to do pre-construction services, if you will, while they're working through the design. And again, on the municipality side, we're seeing a lot of progressive design build opportunities. And again, everybody's at the table working towards the benefit of that project. And that's really a cost-effective way. You get to make the decisions and know that this adds cost certainty because you're doing it now, and it's not happening when you've got 20, 30 guys on the job site working around. So and again, if any client, if you're there early, make the decisions, provide the direction, communicate your vision, and get everybody working towards that. And those are the best projects, without fail. Those are the best projects. An active owner who is communicating well to not only the contractor, but to the design team. Get everybody there and provide clear direction. And those projects go really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing I'm definitely taking away is just how much has shifted towards pre-planning, modeling, and the more precise you can be there, down to the trades doing offsite manufacturing of the work product that they can just bring on site and then plop into place, right, and install into place. It just saves tremendous amounts of money, and also redo on work and saves on labor costs. So it's kind of like we're shifting maybe where some of the cost center is on projects, but in the course of doing that, resulting in a much more efficiently delivered project.
Absolutely. Collaboration from the owner, from the designer, from the contractor to the subtrades. That's how you're going to drive a great, effective budgeting project and a scheduling project. You're really going to deliver on time and on that budget.
As we wrap up here, I'm just curious, Matt, as you look out 5 years, you've already highlighted some trends in general, particularly around green building codes and new materials. Is there anything else and offsite manufacturing, and then to bring it on site? Any other broader industry trends that you think might be developing in the next 5 years that are worth noting or highlighting?
You're going to see robotics. They already have a robot that lays block walls. Pretty impressive. They've got a 3D concrete printing machine that's pretty impressive. I can see those being used in more challenging workspaces, driving safety to our workers by putting those types of activities in a little more hazardous areas. Maybe deep walls or things like that. I can see that happening. And they're getting better every year. So you're going to see a lot more robotics. There's a layout, they call it a Dusty Robot, and it looks like a Rumba. And you turn it loose and it starts laying out where the walls go and where the foundations go. And I can see that continuing to grow and be utilized much more. Again, we're utilizing technology to not only create effectiveness, but also bridge our labor gap as all of our apprentice programs catch up to where we were at 15, 20 years ago.
You're going to end up with a fleet of Tesla robots 20 years from now on the construction site, doing work, working side by side with human beings.
That very well could. Very well could.
Matt, so obviously you are an immense resource of knowledge and insights into the construction field and what's going on in the industry. And given the size of Erickson-Hall, you have a lot of work you're doing too that gives you ongoing, consistent feedback about what's going on. I'm sure folks out there that are thinking about construction projects or just contemplating big infrastructure would love a chance to chat with you. How do people reach out to you with questions?
Well, they can reach me at mgates@ericksonhall.com, ERICKSONHALL. And our corporate number is 760-796-7700. And I enjoy talking about construction, if you didn't know.
I can tell. This has been really insightful for me. I appreciate it. I come away from this learning something new, and I hope our audience does too. And with that, that's today's report. My thanks to Matt for joining us. From the whole Public CEO team and myself, Ryder Todd Smith, thank you for your time. We hope you learned something new and inspiring that will help you in your public service. Remember, Public CEO has a daily newsletter that is free to those who sign up at PublicCEO.com. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Public CEO Report. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing across all of our platforms so you never miss out on this great content. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music.